Welcome everyone to today's webinar on beauty in Buddhism. It is my honor to introduce Professor Santosh Raut, sir. Sir is the Assistant Professor of Philosophy in English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad. His PhD thesis was on Buddhist aesthetics, comparing them with Immanuel Kant. He has been active in the art movement for a very long time and on various forums. Sir has also produced a musical work and is active in the arts festival like the Buddha Festival. I now request Mangesh Dahiwale sir to take over the further proceedings.
First of all, welcome to the Ambedkar Caravan Media, and it has been a great pleasure to have Dr. Santosh Raut and Dr. Anuradha joining us. Today, this topic of beauty is very important for a lot of areas that we talk about, because this topic of beauty is directly related to the emancipation project. As far as we know that the caste system is very ugly, and it has been given very vicious forms and very ugly forms, and people are felt low, that their sense of beauty is destroyed, and therefore creating beauty, appreciating beauty, generating beauty and communicating beauty is of utmost importance for our emancipation. And therefore this topic of beauty in Buddhism, beauty in Babasaheb's life and mission, beauty in the movement is very important. And we have no other than, as Dr. Anuradha said, Dr. Santosh Raut, who has himself been studying the beauty in all its different aspects, particularly with reference to Baba Saheb's movement, particularly with reference to Buddhism, and particularly in reference to at large. So we are looking forward towards a very fascinating discussion today. Dr. Sahab will speak for 30-40 minutes. He will present his ideas, and then we will open the forum for discussion. So without taking much of your time, I request Dr. Santosh Raut to present his ideas on this very important topic.
First of all, a very heartily jai Hind to all of you, and thank you very much, Dr. Anuradha and Mangesh, for having me on this forum. I appreciate all the work this media is doing. I have been watching and following. I congratulate the team for your contribution to the people in difficult times, to reach out to the people for all the good values and beautiful values that people really need to know. So I would just, it's a huge topic, as you see from the topic itself. Each word can be a topic in itself. The beauty in Buddhism, or the beauty in Ambedkar's literature and his life, the way he lived, and also the movement itself. It's quite a huge topic. I will try my best to sort of have a brief survey of the essential elements from each area that sort of a team has been asked me to, or invited me to speak for, and then I would be happy to take up some questions. So how can I go back?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me just begin with a very brief sort of note. I'm not going into all art theories and all, but art is something to do with the two important terms, like creativity means something that is new or original, and also which comes out of the direct experience and continues in the imaginative faculties of mind. That's the essential tool creativity in creating art or anything called beautiful. And that beauty has the symbolic representation, and that symbolic representation is by custom or convention represents something beyond itself. For example, a cross. So that cross can be a medical cross, that can be a green cross means pharmacy cross, blue cross means veterinary cross, or even cross of Jesus. You see, so the symbol always represents something more than the phenomena that it represents for. It also communicates between the lower order of existence, which represents or corresponds to the higher order of existence. And this conception is on a hierarchical structure of reality, not hierarchy in a social hierarchical sense, but in a structural hierarchical sense in terms of human experience. And therefore, symbol is something that is invisible, visible of something invisible. It tries to suggest something. It tries to reach out something from lower plane of correspondence to the higher realities. And those symbols and creativity forms the culture. For example, again, I'm not going into all these details, but I just showing you for your information. Like, for example, William Raymond defines culture means cultivation, comes from the Latin word cultura. So it's a natural tending or human development, particularly human mind. So culture, as we commonly understand, is not lying out there, but there's the creativity deeply seated in a human mind. And the way we understand who we are finds our expression and, values, customs, beliefs. That's what all constitutes the culture. And importantly, Dr. Ambedkar refers the culture of mind, which most of the philosopher of the culture or cultural theorist would refer to. So culture is the tradition of the values of the self-expression. What you think, how you behave, how your attitudes are, that express in the culture. So culture in a way is an experiential condition for the self. For example, as you mentioned in a very brief note, it's a caste culture. So every individual is aware of their own caste, their own gender, their own sort of social hierarchy. If culture is full of hierarchy, you see what I mean? Social culture is full of hierarchy. So it assigns values, the way of thinking, the beliefs, which determines how to sort of conduct oneself in relation with others. And that's where Dr. Ambedkar makes an extremely important point, that the dharma or any religion should provide the condition for the development of the self and the society. So unless we understand the nature of reality, what actually the culture, the meaning of culture is, as very rightly pointed out by Dr. Ambedkar, that meaning and purpose of human life. If you don't understand that, aesthetic or beauty would merely reduce down to the pleasurable sensation. It would be a sensuism, sense pleasure, which is not really a beauty, which is not actually in effect is a beautiful, because that will degenerate beauty or reduce beauty to merely a sensuous pleasure. I don't think the Dhamma or the Buddhism addresses beauty in that manner. Often many scholars even I'm struggling with my own colleagues, often says that the Buddha denied beauty, Natchagana, and other art forms. I think what Buddha was attacking towards this sensuism, the beauty that is based on the sense pleasure. When it comes to aesthetic judgment, it probably not comes by the mere sensuism. You cannot justify that beauty on the basis of senses. There is something that aesthetics or beauty plays a crucial role. In what way it plays a crucial role? So we are a being of reason. We do think, we do conceptualize, we do try to understand what is this, what is that right, is that not right. Within us we have an idea of something, that our quest try to reach out something higher, something greater from the unconditioned or the asankhara, the Pali word Buddha used. from that point of view, we try to discover something greater, insensible world. Because how do we operate the world if not senses? But within senses, we cannot reduce down our existence to the mere sensuism. As Dr. Ambedkar says that we need food for your stomach, but you also need food for your mind. That's what Dr. Ambedkar was hinting at. So we are able to do it more successfully in aesthetic experience through the beauty of art, nature, with far more deeply where sensible and super sensible interfuse. You see, yes, I do listen the great piece of art. I do see a beautiful painting or even a suffering. You see what I mean? That's something shakes me. For example, in this pandemic, I'll go into it in my later part of the presentation, that shakes us very deeply. So however good I am safe in my home, I don't feel comfortable. There is a guilt because world is dying out there and I cannot just stay calm in my house, however good I do get a couple of times in the day. So there is something in my sensuous world that interferes with something super sensible, which goes beyond me, which drives me or forces me to reach out something greater in human existence. Right? So the aesthetic contemplation thus allows us to stand outside from our egocentric interest, my self-interest or my selfish interest. And therefore, that taste theory is understanding. That taste is the ability to judge the object. Object here is the condition, the circumstances, the reality, or the way of presenting it by means of liking or disliking, divide of all interest, where I play no role. I'm not seeing that or perceiving that for the sake of my interest. This object is beautiful, therefore it should belong to me, or I should have it. So there should not that attahasa, agraha. There is no ego or the force that I must possess it. That object will be devoid of all interest, disinterestedness. I will not be interested in terms of ego. So thus, such kind of object or liking of such object probably would call as beautiful, where I have no role. And that's where I transcend myself. That's where aesthetic experience is an experience of release that results in a pleasure, is edifying and is connected to an awareness of a higher purpose to our lives, revealed by seeing the things as they are, not from my egoistic point of view. And probably this realization, this understanding that leads us to release from the anxiety or anger or hatred for others, or aap par bhed, me, you and I duality. And probably that leads us to a joy of liberation, or the joy of Priti in Pali, liberation is vimukti, or freedom in Pali's context, vimukti. So, in that sense, if I refer to a very great Western aesthetician called Schopenhauer, he says that it has a double transformation. In what sense? First of all, it frees you from your own ego. It frees you from your own ego or pride identity, whether it could be a gender identity or color identity, race identity, caste identity. I am upper, I am white, or I am scholar, or I am in power, or I am enlightened, or whatever. Buddha doesn't share that experience, right? So it releases from that anxiety, pride, and egocentricity. At the same time, that knowledge promotes disinterestedness, what Buddhism would call vairagya, or call towards the renunciation, pravajja. I don't attach myself to any pride under the complete silence of the will. My tanna, my sort of craving is silent. My interest, my ego is killed. That's that object or that state of mind is, in a sense, aesthetic delight or the beautiful. So, as far as some facts are concerned, we must recognize that Buddha himself never sort of produced any aesthetic theory. because he was not a philosopher for sake of philosopher like Kant or Plato or Aristotle or any Western philosopher for that sake. He was not doing philosophy for sake of doing philosophy. His purpose was eradication of suffering, knowing the suffering and end of the suffering. And in that process, nonetheless or nevertheless, Buddha or Buddhist canonical tradition or text certainly makes an extremely important reference to the beauty. And in that regard, Buddha throws a very strong germ out of which a theory of beauty or an aesthetic theory can be erected or can be recognized. So Buddha did not present himself as a philosopher, but he certainly has aesthetic concern, and that aesthetic concern is beautiful and goes something beyond him, which Buddha's noble quest drives him to become the noble one, the enlightened one. His quest led him to the Sambodhi or the Prajna and the Mahakaruna, which is very well established in his noble quest in Arya Paryasana Sutta in Majjhim Nikaya. Buddha sort of says that the Nibbana, the supreme security and liberation from all bondage, that's what it drives him for the beautiful. So he sees the reality into three characteristics: that there is no self, there is no Atman, there is no ego as such, any Brahmatman or Kshatriyatman or Striyatman or Ksudratman or Dalitatman or any Atman. There is no Atman. There is no self. There is no fixed identity of things as such. And the moment I realize or see through that, I realize the release. I reach up to the release that the things are anatman. There is no Atman. Things are changing. They are in a flow. But often, as I cited Schopenhauer, he is known popularly as a pessimist. Even I don't think people had understood Schopenhauer very deeply. He was not actually a pessimist. Yes, at times he throws a very strong waves of pessimism, but he was trying to get at something, the suspension of will, the destruction of will in his language. Likewise, Buddha recognizes the impermanence, anityata, as a flow, which can be beautiful. If we are not in flow of evolution, if we are not in flow of something that leads us to higher experiences or greater experiences or transcendence of self, I will be fixed in myself. I will be fixed in my Atman. I will be fixed in my the caste identity or the gender identity or race identity, and that will lead me to something. That's what Buddha is trying to see through, and that is scientific, dependent origination, pratitya samutpad, as Buddha puts it, because things has conditioned to arise a new condition. Even why this crisis we are facing is conditioned. People should have looked after whenever the virus has arrived at that very moment itself. If we don't look after that condition, it will lead to the another condition. But when coronavirus entered into India, the deeper condition are at challenge. As I already said in my couple of talks I delivered before, this situation is trying to bring out the best out of us. This situation is also trying to bring out the worst out of us. So you see the suffering around. And that condition, which is self-centered, I'm secured in my house, let others die if they die. If they don't get food, a pathetic situation we encounter, the pathetic news we encounter, the horrible pictures we encounter, horrible videos we encounter, and that condition must be seized to bring out the good conditions. And if those conditions are fixed in the name of caste or race or gender or hierarchy, we will be in trouble. I think that virus needs to be treated much urgently as soon as possible. So that's how conditions are in flow, and that can be changed because they are not fixed. So that progressive condition leads to the Buddhist aesthetic philosophy. The quest from condition to unconditioned. Progression in condition in Buddhist aesthetic philosophy suggests the hierarchy of the consciousness, hierarchy of the state of mind in terms of realization, not in terms of status, not in terms of ego. Often this might be very easily misunderstood. So you see that in Nanda's story in Buddha's life. And Buddha says that beautiful leads to the dhyana, fourth dhyana, traditionally speaking, where you neither perceive nor not perceive. Yes, you are there as your sense presence because my body is here, so I'm here. I have to sort of understand me as my bodily presence. But at the same time, this body is also deteriorating. As Buddha beautifully says, Uppam milayati yatayi dhamme kayo tatha yati vinasa bhavam. The flower which is a shining and blooming today, tomorrow will shy. Likewise, the nature of my body, my kaya. So in that sense, Nanda realized the greater release. Nanda realized the greater beauty, which is not sensuism, as I already said. So Buddha sort of focuses not only three lakshanas, that is dukkha, anicca, and anatma, but he also gives the three counterpart. Dukkha vis-a-vis apranahita, wishlessness. If I destroy my craving, and craving here, don't ask poor not to crave for a food. That's misunderstanding. Craving means if I hold my resources too much to myself, others will suffer. I must not encroach on others' wish. That is the wishlessness, apranahita, and that is beautiful. So limited number of people cannot acquire all the resources to their hand, in their power, in their treasury, in their grocery, and others should die out of lack of water or food or roti. You see what I mean? Impermanence vis-a-vis signlessness. Because things are changing, you cannot fix to any symbol. That is the symbol. Anything, whether it's cross or Om or moon and star or even Buddhist symbol, you cannot have that fundamentalism, right? You cannot have that fanaticism in terms of realizing its beauty. If whatever religion you belong to, whether you are Muslim or Hindu, or whether you are Buddhist or even theist or atheist, you must have to communicate beyond yourself. Whatever values you believe in, that values must lead you to liberate you from the clutches of your ego, clutches of your self-identity. The ego self-identity, that is signlessness. Yes, my name is Santosh, but there is no Santosh, as in Milind Panno or Milind Prashna. Buddha, Babasaheb, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar very well quoted in Buddha and his Dhamma that there is no chariot as such, there is no sign as such, there is no identity as such. But yes, conventionally, I have to call myself Santosh. Otherwise, you will not differentiate it from Anuradha or Mangesh or some other person. You see what I mean? So it's conventional. It's not ultimate. It's not absolute. Why it is not absolute? Because that is insubstantial. That is anatman, empty, shunya. It has no identity in its own. That's what Buddha is trying to get at, which is beautiful. Nothingness here is not nothing in a pessimistic sense. Nothingness here is there is no caste, as Dr. Ambedkar very well derived the analogy from the Buddha. So again, we have a little survey of the Pali Canon. In Sanyukta Nikaya, in Sapta Dhatu Sutta, Buddha clearly mentions the beauty element is discerned in the dependence of wholeness. Shuddha dhatu ayam dhatu ashubham pattaji panyayati. So there is a bhavana which is a shubha and ashubha. Shubha here is a beautiful. Shubha is not in a shubha labha sense. Shubha here is something auspicious. So there is a beautiful story in Digha Nikaya in Phatika Sutta, where one Brahmana encounters the Shramana in ancient forest, and he encounters the Shramana, and that Brahmana questions that monk, says that, oh Brahmana, Brahmana says to Shramana, oh Shramana, your master is teaching the ugly nature of universe. So that monk, Bhikshu, surprises. In what sense Buddha teaches me ugliness? No, he doesn't teaches you beauty in the terms of beauty of Atman, beauty of God, beauty of this and that. And he just teaches you impermanence, anityata. Everything is dying, everything is deteriorating, there is nothing, there is shunya, there is an Atman, nothing exists. But this Atma reaches to Brahmatma, he doesn't teaches that, like it is propounded in Vedic literature. And monk gets convinced, oh, you are right, Buddha teaches us three lakshanas, dukkha, anitya, anatman. And he doesn't teaches us the beautiful. So he goes to the Buddha and questions back him, Buddha, is that what you are teaching us, ugly nature of universe? But that's where Buddha intervenes in the right nature of beauty. Buddha says, monk, I can understand, or a bhikkhu, I can understand, but that is what not I teach, the ugly nature of universe. What I teach is this. Whenever one reaches the release called beautiful, then he really knows indeed what beautiful is. And beauty here in Pali cannot refer to the Shubha. What beautiful is. Because the liberation is possible on the contemplation of that beauty which does not hold any biases, asavas, right? I hold a lot of biases, either subjective biases, my personal flaws, my individual limitation, or my objective flaws, my social flaws. I think I am a Brahmin, I think I am the educated, I think I am a white, I think I am a scholar, I think I am this, I am that, and so on and so forth. So there are infinite identities I have created in me, which sort of gives me a biases. Oh, that man is that caste, that woman is that caste, or she is from that gender, or from that color, or from that race or nation, and so on and so forth. So we created these asavas, which are ashubha, ugly in nature. That's what monk should not follow, Buddha says. He must seize the real nature of the release. That is the nibbana, nirvana, where you don't have asavas. So you destroy the asavas. Actually, in Bhavachakra, there is a asava kshaya gnana. You kshaya, you destroy the asavas, and therefore you achieve the nana, the wisdom, where you are not prejudiced. That's what Buddha is trying to get at. And the another difference Buddha does with the sammisa and niramisa. The pleasure that object give with the egoistic pleasure, that is the sammisa. Sammisa is translated as a with flesh, sensuous. And niramisa means no flesh, non-sensuous, or the super sensible, beyond senses, right? Beyond sensuous pleasure. That's the pleasure which does not carry your egocentric, your own flesh, your own self-existence in terms of ego. So that's what Buddha differentiates. In that sense, he acknowledges the beauty as a path to attain the nibbana, the nirvana. So aesthetic experience is the recognition within the world of appearances of the reflection of the ultimate beauty found in the nirvana or nibbana. We only contemplate aesthetic journey when we really see that face to face. Face to face here means by attaining the enlightenment itself, by attaining or sharing the Buddha's experience itself. And that is the vimukti. That is the beautiful, Buddha says. That is the Shubha. So beauty in that sense is the response towards the something ultimate, something ideal, not ideal in abstract sense, but the Samma. You see in Aryashtangik Marga, we refer to the Samma Drishti, Samma Vacha, Samma Vayama. Samma here, not right against wrong, not perfect against imperfect, right? Samma here is a something which cannot be challenged, which is true, which is satya, which is a beautiful. So you see that often in the Western beauty or the aesthetic sense, if in always club with the morality and the beautiful with the truth. But truth in the Western idealistic tradition has a problem of absolutism, because that has a connection with the God, that has a connection with the something that is fixed, omnipotent, omnipresent, unchallengeable, unquestionable. Buddha denies that position. Buddha does not take that position. I think that's where the radical notion of beauty comes in Buddha's aesthetic philosophy. And that's where probably Dr. Ambedkar was trying to pin that down, right? Whenever the realization that unconditioned reaches to the mind, you don't really see your mind as absolute or omnipotent. What you realize more in artistic expression, egolessness, anatta, or shunyata. So that's how probably Lama Govinda or even Sangarshita in his theory meets the sphere of consciousness. Well, that's it. I won't go much detail into the beauty of Pali Canon, but I will just cite like the Iti Sutta in Anguttara Nikaya. Buddha welcomes the beauty. In Bhojan Sutta in Anguttara Nikaya, Buddha says that having these gifts of the life, strength, beauty, happiness, quick-wittedness, and the long life, in Satta Dhatu, 7 properties, Buddha acknowledges the property of the beauty. And he recognizes that is it equivalent to the 4th jnana. And also in Anjaniya Sutta, Buddha sort of very strongly recognizes the beauty with the virtues, morality, with the character, shila. Your Sikha Padan, that's your footing of the beauty. That's the foundation of your beauty, your moral character. And that character, even also in Chula Kamma Vibhanga Sutta, Buddha identifies the virtue as a quality of beauty, right? So, also the Buddha's very famous disciple called Vangisa. Vangisa asks Buddha, is that all right if I compose a poem on your appearance? And Buddha encourages Vangisa, oh, blessed one, share your inspiration, Vangisa. And Buddha sort of encourages that poet to write his poetry. And Vangisa says this, like the full moon on a cloudless night, on the sun shining in a clear blue sky, you great sage, that's the Buddha, like a god of fire, outshine the whole world with your glory. Means Buddha is glorying or the shining like a sun. That's what Vangisa says. And of course, in Kalama Sutta, where Babasaheb sort of picks up the definition of the Dhamma, that the Dhamma is a Adi Kalyanam, Madhya Kalyanam, Paryosana Kalyanam. Beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, beautiful in the end. So, in Chanki Sutta as well, Buddha has addressed as a handsome one, the beautiful one, the graceful one, the presence of the subliminal beauty of the Buddha. So that's how the Buddha sort of very genuinely recognizes the Kalyana, the Kalyana in the sense of beauty of the mind, beauty of the human relationship. I will come on that very quickly now. So it is the Buddhist tradition as the epithet of Kalyana is also applied to the Dhamma. It is the Dhamma which is Kalyana. We often think the Dhamma is something merely rational, intellectual, or merely dry moral. But it is simply the truth and the good, which is also beautiful and can be appreciated aesthetically. That's what Buddha's position is. And beauty as a door to liberation, Vimukha Mokha. Mokha means the Mukha, means the door, and Vimukha means the Vimukti, the door to liberation. And Buddha recognizes, I'm not highlighting the entire slide, but here it is the beautiful Shubhateya animutto hoti. It is the beautiful one becomes intended on it. One enters into the door of liberation. That's what Buddha says. So, in that sense, Buddha recognizes, don't focus on the entire slide, but the Shubha, that's what he is trying to hinting at. And the Shubha Vimukti. Vimukti is a beautiful, Buddha says. And that is based on your Vinaya, character, where he differentiates between the Shubha Rata and Dubha Rata. Shubha Rata means the devotion to the beauty, devotion to the nirvana, against the devotion to the deceiving of someone, not telling lies, not deceiving, not telling untruth. In that sense, Babasaheb directed society towards only truth, as the Buddha directed society, directed culture, directed aesthetics, directed politics, directed nation only towards the truth, right? That's what very important to understand. So I don't want to romanticize the ancient canonical text, or this is ancient, therefore glorify and therefore beautiful. No. One needs to understand the relevancy, the its sort of the significance and the depth of the values in it. Therefore, Buddha sort of in here, as I put it, Buddha did not use the word radical beauty, but I'm using it, is the devotion to the Nibbana, which is radical, Shubha Rata, against the Dubha Rata, deceiving someone. You cannot deceive politics. You cannot deceive society. You cannot deceive facts. You cannot deceive reality, right? You cannot deceive towards, which is ugly. And that is not bright. That will not lead us to the bright future. So if you focus on the Sammakhatta Sutta of Anguttara Nikaya, Buddha says that the beautiful Shubhati is a bright, which is devotion to the truth. Shubharata, devotion to the something beautiful called release, which is Pavasana, Prabhas, which is a shining, enlightening, not darkening, not ugly, not limited, not stereotype, not crumbling, not oppressive. That's ugly. That's not beautiful. And that is not good. That is not kusala. That is akusala, unskillful. That cannot be skillful. And it does not lead you to the development of the faculty and makes you delight. Rather, it leads you to the harmful and unskillful. And that is not Dhamma. That is not beautiful. Right? Here comes Dr. Ambedkar in 1933 and sort of entering into a very radical dialogue in the Indian culture, Indian tradition of aesthetics, Indian tradition of beauty and ugly. He says in 1933 in Mumbai, they alone rise who strive. Means Atta Deepa Bhava, be your own light. Some of you nurse the wrong notion that you will not rise in this world. But remember that the age of helplessness has ended. A new epoch has set in. All things are now possible. Now, why all things are possible? All things are only possible because they are not Atma-based. They are not Atman-based. They are Anatman-based. They are Anitya. They are subject to change. That's the real translation of, yes, it is momentary, transitory, but subject to change, not fixity. Therefore, all things are now possible. The great hope, the great ray of hope Dr. Ambedkar tried to bring in the notion of beauty. If I try to theorize Dr. Ambedkar's life and his engagement with the art, now I'm shifting to the second phase. Buddha sort of his sketch his life in the childhood itself. He got the Buddha's Charita, and in 1930 he visited the Nashik caves. 1936 he met the Italian monk called Loknatha, and he tells that there was a hanging image of the Buddha in his library in Rajgriha. A very tall hanging scroll of the Buddha was hanging at Babasaheb's library wall. And their correspondence, Loknatha and Babasaheb's correspondence, published from Ceylon, that is Sri Lanka, from Panadura in 1936, Buddhism will make you free. That's the title of their correspondence. I tried to get hold of it. Those who are listening to me or my colleague should get hold of it, would be great. And in 1936, in Annihilation of Caste, Dr. Ambedkar first time produces the Buddhist analogy of caste. That is his nothing, his anatman. In the last pages, he gives the notion that all things are insubstantial. He uses the word nashwar. It's a state of mind. Therefore, that state of mind can be changed. Therefore, you must take the stand that Buddha took. And in 1943, he visited Kushinara, met U. Chandramani. In 1945, Scheduled Caste Federation, Ahmedabad, he named that Pendal as a Buddhanagar. And in 1948, he published The Essence of Buddhism, written by P.N. Narsu. And 1949 and 50, he visited Ajanta and Ellora caves with the president, Rajendra Prasad, first president of this India. And he says that in order to purify the current politics, all Hindus should observe the Buddha Jayanti. He said that in Janta 1942. So you see the images here. He was visiting the Ajanta caves, and in that pendal is actually conversion ceremony pendal, where he has a painting of his own made by his own disciple and the Sachi Stupa at this stage of the conversion phenomena. And in Prabuddha Bharat and all the journalism he did or the writing he did, he produced the iconographic symbolic representation. So that was the Rajendra Prasad and Dr. Ambedkar in the caves while in their visit. Is the first president of the India. Dr. Ambedkar is handing over the Indian Constitution. The beautiful values he enshrined in the preamble and the Constitution, I must say. So in that sense, Indian Constitution is also a document of beautiful aesthetics, I would say. Is the aesthetics, liberty, equality, fraternity, justice, and dignity is beautiful. Denying someone's dignity is ugly. Denying someone's freedom is ugly. Denying someone's equality is ugly. That is ugly. So what Babasaheb is produced is the beauty of values to create a beautiful India. Prabuddha Bharat. That's what he was digging the root of its own country. You see? And in 1955, he installed the Buddha image at Dehu Road. I think you all must be knowing. And that Gulab Nagdeve, I showed you the image at conversion. This is Gulab Nagdeve's painting. At the very head of the Babasaheb said, if you see that, at conversion ceremony. His disciple made his beautiful painting and hanged as he's the liberator, the one who sees the beauty. And in last his journey, he visited Lumbini, he visited Bodh Gaya, he visited Namek Stupa. In fact, I could not find that picture where Dr. Ambedkar visited the Sarnath Museum and gazing at the lion's emblem, national emblem, the Ashokan lion. He was gazing at them with the full emotions. I tried to find, but I couldn't find. My time was less. And in 25th November, just before probably 10 days, 6th December and 5th November 1956, he came to see the painting exhibition at Mathura Road. And in the eyes, in his tears, he came out of the painting exhibition and says, on 1st December 1956, my Buddha is beautiful, my Buddha is beautiful, my Buddha is beautiful. That's the Udana in Pali, how Buddha feels happy. He expressed the Udana. Likewise, this was the Udana of Babasaheb. My Buddha is beautiful, my Buddha is beautiful. And in Buddha and his Dhamma, which he has written the preface on 5th night, he heard the Buddhist chanting before he died. And in the book 8, part 3, Babasaheb acknowledges Buddha as a lover of the beautiful. And here is the beautiful is profound beautiful, not the sensuism as I referred, not the sense-based beauty, but the beauty of mind, Babasana, luminous mind, the infinite mind he was trying to get at, right? So that's Babasaheb titles that his love for the lovely. He says, my Buddha is beautiful, and he writes in Buddha and his Dhamma the lover of the beautiful. So you can see the profundity of Buddha and his Dhamma Dr. Ambedkar was trying to produce it, to give before he goes. Of course, Dr. Ambedkar as an artist has a taste. Everything he was looking very carefully. He compiled Buddha Vandana with the help of the Krishna Rao Fulandrikar, the composer, and it was published from HMV. And in that leaflet, backside of the leaflet, it was arranged by the Dr. Ambedkar. That's what it is printed on the video cassette. And Rattu, his personal assistant, tells us from his writing, Dr. Ambedkar has so much painting of himself, but unfortunately they lost. And Dr. Ambedkar's Rattu says that the strength and the power of his brush did create a deep impression on the mind of the viewer. Richness of the color and the perfect handling of lines were strong point of his oil painting and art pieces. That's what Rattu is saying about Dr. Ambedkar's painting. We lost what he has drawn, but Rattu gives us the list that Dr. Ambedkar draws on landscape, doors, elephant, peacocks, water creatures, deer, which was favorite to him, crow, which is often related with the Ashubha. In Shamanic tradition, it is called the messenger from another world. And of course, his masterpiece, Open-Eyed Buddha. He draw with himself, not the closed-eyed Buddha, but open-eyed Buddha. And he was a violinist, as you all know. I myself interviewed his teacher, Sathe Guruji, from Mumbai in Nagpur, probably 10 years back. The person who taught Dr. Ambedkar violin. And he was saying that Dr. Ambedkar was in that age so quick to clutch his fingers. As you see, I don't know who draw this painting, but this man is very clever in drawing Dr. Ambedkar's finger, the way he is holding the violin. That's what Sathe told me. Yes, I can tell from own experience, his teacher which I interviewed. He was very quick in learning any instrument. And of course, you can see the masterpiece Dr. Ambedkar draw. In performing arts, Dr. Ambedkar sort of encouraged the Bodhi theatre. And immediately after the conversion ceremony, the Yuga Yatra, this Yuga Yatra play was written by Jyotiba Phule, attended by 6 to 8 lakh audience ever in the history of Indian dramaturgy. Attended by this much of people, that drama, and N.B. Chitnis was directing that play, written that play, I think, not Jyotiba Phule, N.B. Chitnis, principal of Millen College. And that drama was viewed or spectacularly seen by 6 to 8 lakh people. We also know that Dr. Ambedkar has lots of Buddha sculpture in his bedroom in Aurangabad, surrounded by many small images of the Buddha. So that's what the Dr. Ambedkar was digging, to bring the beautiful nation, bring the beautiful country. He chose the Ashokan lion as a national emblem, Ashokan Chakra. And if you see at the president chair, it's written the Dhamma Chakraya Parivartanaya. Progress must be done at any cost. You cannot have a static nation in the name of caste, in the name of any asavas, as I told, or as I shared, or any asavas or any biasness that holds us back. That is not allowed, simply. And to remember this beautiful day when Buddha attained the release, which is Shubha, which is beautiful, which is luminous, Dr. Ambedkar declared the Buddha Jayanti as a holiday. So that nation should remember why this is holiday, and they must purify the politics by remembering and chanting the mantra Buddham Saranam Gacchami, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Dear friends, let us not view Dr. Ambedkar's vision with a stereotypical frame. Dr. Ambedkar has a glass of infinity. Dr. Ambedkar's spect is a prism of infinity, limitlessness, infinite, which no one can grasp. His mind, no one can grasp. One must understand that. Often in this country, Dr. Ambedkar became a victim of reductionism. People did not understand what Dr. Ambedkar was trying to deliver to this country as a true patriot, a true nation hero, a true statesman. By digging all the histories in Chakka Pavatin Sutta, in this slide, I named it as a Chakka Pavatin Raja. He was Ashoka. And in the Chakka Pavatin Sutta, Buddha refers, king must have the quality of beauty to recognize as a Kalyana. What does that mean? He is telling to his disciples, monk, the Sangha, that monks, you should live with the life of virtuousness so that the king must understand what values you are living for. That is the Chakka Pavatin Sutta. And this chakra, the king always should realize the value of progress, the value of positive progress without biasness. The beauty I'm talking about, the sense of beauty, the radical beauty I'm trying to talk about, transcending self, transcending caste, transcending prejudices, transcending religious biasness, extremities, atireka, as it is called in aesthetic language. Atireka is not allowed. Extremity is not allowed. And that's what Dr. Ambedkar was digging in the beautiful ancient civilization, Ashokan pillar, where the happiness of everyone is promised, equality is promised, liberty is promised, fraternity is promised. Therefore, Babasaheb, I call it as a modern Ashoka. He's a modern king. But because there is no kingship in this country, he tried to bring that through the constitutional means. He tries to draw that spirit through the Indian constitution, through the court system, through the judiciary system, through the legal system. But one needs to understand that all the time, unless India become a really beautiful in a true sense, right? You see, he founded the People's Education Society to educate this, and he borrowed the symbol of People's Education Society from the ancient caves of the Ajanta, from the Buddha's two deer, which comes from the deer park. In the Dhamma Chakra Pavatan Sutta, which you have seen in earlier slide, that's what it represents for. The equality, the peace, the love, the beautiful Buddha was talking and teaching about. That's what Dr. Ambedkar was trying to draw attention from. In All India Radio, which is a telecasting radio, which is one of the very, what I would say, the prominent and only the media was available at that time. So Dr. Ambedkar says that Bahujan Hitay, Bahujan Sukhai. If you read the logo of Akashwani with the Ashok Chakra, Bahujan Hitay, Bahujan Sukhai, what does that mean? The happiness of many, happiness of all, in fact, happiness of every citizenship. Not they are dying on the streets, not they are delivering baby on the streets, not the mother craving for the food or the son are crying on the dead body of a mother. That's not the Bahujan Hitay and Bahujan Sukhai. And media is responsible for that. The telecasting company agencies are responsible for that. And that has to take a moral stand, which must be beautiful. That has to take a stand which must communicate the truth, which must speak in the favor of the happiness of many. Bahujan Hitay, Bahujan Sukha. That's what the logo was. And if you look at the this building, Rashtrapati Bhavan, it's very clearly visible because it's constructed in the colonial period. And I don't justify the colonialism at all, or the British rule at all, I must say, without any hesitation. But they were rulers. They were trying to rule the country. And they try to sort of understand who was the greatest ruler in the past. So, nonetheless, whoever the architecture of that building, it was also the values now after post-independence, we have to realize our own past. Dr. Ambedkar very clearly hinted that. Britishers are gone now. English are gone and you cannot blame them. Whatever blunders they have done to this country, they have done. But now you have to take responsibility. So that's what these buildings are trying to suggest, the Sachi Stupa structure at the head of it, the top of it. And I already spoke about the Ashok Chakra here. That's the values, the beautiful values the state must represent before the world. If at all we have to become a Jagat Guru, if at all we wanted to become a Jagat Guru, the first Guru, the Buddha, who born in this country, who attained enlightenment under the Bodh Gaya, under the Bodhi tree, will make this country as a Jagat Guru by propounding the beautiful, the Nirvana. And this is the chair of president. A standing Buddha is behind the president, and you can see the Ashok Chakra with the Dhamma Chakra Parivartanaya written there. With the president chair, you can clearly see the architectural or the symbolic representation of the state itself. And we are obliged as a power, as a ruling party, as a politicians or bureaucrat or legislature being, or as a citizen, we are responsible to go refuge, Sharan Gamana, to the values that Dr. Ambedkar was trying to teach to this country through all these constitutional means, legal means, legislative means, through spiritual means, through dhammic means, what I mean spiritual here, or whatever religion you follow, that values as obliged to the Indian Constitution. Indian Constitution is not for a particular community. This is not for a particular society. This is not for a particular religion. This is India's document. This is the beautiful document of the nation. On the basis, nation governs. On the basis, citizenship governs. On the basis, equality should govern. On the basis, liberty should govern. And if we see that is happening, then India will be a Jagat Guru. Then it will be a beautiful country. You see in all court buildings, this is a High Court of Nagpur. Again, you see the railings of the Sachi Stupa, the Stupa structure. Because Ashoka promoted justice. Ashoka promoted liberty, equality, and fraternity. Buddha promoted liberty, equality, and fraternity, which Ambedkar himself says, I borrowed from my master, the Buddha, not from the French Revolution. And that's the Supreme Court building. Again, you see the structure. It's nothing to do with religion, it's to do with the values, it's to do with the moral, it's to do with the liberty, equality, fraternity with the constitutional means. I'm not speaking in the any shadow of religion. I am speaking in the shadow of the beautiful. I am speaking in the shadow of the beautiful values that Buddha was trying to teach. The virtuous quality of the beautiful, the virtuous side of the beautiful. Even at the India Gate, you see the stupa structure. I have written a paper on it, but I'm sharing just images. And that's where even in his personal life, Dr. Ambedkar's personal life, if you see the gate of the Marathwada Milind College, we borrowed this structure from the ancient Buddhist caves, the stupa structure. If he did what he could for the nation, he did what he could do in the parliamentary system, he did what he could do as a minister, he did what he could do as a constitutional maker. But in his personal life, in his personal quest, he also expressed his own mind at the Diksha Bhumi. One of my very dear friend, Savi Savarkar, who says that his grandmother used to call Diksha Bhumi as a Mata Kacheri. Kacheri means where the court is, and Mata means the mother. That's what the mother represents in these buildings. Motherly justice must be represented in these buildings. That is called Kacheri, court. But in his personal life, he gave justice through the values. He embraced Buddhism, he renounced the Hinduism, he renounced the idea of hierarchy basically. He renounced the idea of caste hierarchy, the oppressive hierarchy, and he embraced the beautiful liberation at the very place called Diksha Bhumi. In all, I already showed you the People's Education Society from where he borrowed and all. Even in Milind College, he himself had this structure of this stupa where he personally vigiled personally observed and monitored the construction. So in his philosophy, any religious absolute is not allowed. Any religious absolute is not permitted. So it differentiates that between rule and the principles. So it must be humanistic, not monastic, not hetero. It should be humanistic, not orthodox. Communicating to the people the aesthetic absolute, experiencing the beauty. And his comment on the observation of art. This is Dr. Ambedkar, by the way, in Nanak Chand Ratu's writing. Indian caste factor had played a dominant role in the appreciating art. Art suffered because man could not follow his bent. Bent, what he meant by natural talent. A man must be born into a caste which followed a certain art. That's what Dr. Ambedkar said. Bent of the mind. The natural talent must be nourished. You see in Indian Idol or whatever the singing competitions and all, how poor guys are performing because their talent is killed by the caste, by their poverty. I don't know in this pandemic how many genius we are losing who are going to give a bright future to the country. And if we don't look after that, I think we have to think seriously. And therefore, Dr. Ambedkar scolded the Indian artists for their narrow outlook, their stereotypical outlook. Therefore, he said, I like the walking Buddha communicating Brahma door to door. And that's where he changed the view. How the caste hierarchy or your religious fanaticism and fundamentalism had looked at the humanity relationship and how Buddha treated the Sunnita. He is a Sunnita, belongs to lower caste, and Buddha ordained him in his assembly of the enlightened monks. That's what Buddha invited Sunnita to enter into his monk order. So that's the beauty of the view. That's the beauty of your understanding, where you don't carry any prejudices in your mind. Your mind is completely liberated. You don't see other human being with the caste prejudices. There are no asavas. There are no any kleshas. There is no any impurity in your mind. If you carry impurity in your mind, you will treat other human being lesser human. You will not see them as a human. And that's for the position of even gender in the women in caste hierarchy. That's what it comes in a Vedic time. I'm not going to go into great detail of this because I have no time. So in Bhikkhuni Sangha, in Buddha's monastic order, Buddha promoted absolute liberty and equality. And therefore, Buddha was a revolutionary. He was having a notion of the radical beauty in that sense. But what Mata Kachari should represent and what it represents now symbolically and iconographically, that needs to understand. Even in the High Court of the Rajasthan, we see a statue of Manu. We see the values that has promoted the inequality and oppressive values, where Buddha was giving equality and teaching equality to the nuns, to the women. And in Manusmriti, Dr. Ambedkar, in the very celebrated paper called The Rise and Fall of Hindu Women, and who is responsible for it, Dr. Ambedkar very clearly cites the Manusmriti, the law of Manus, and what were the condition of the Shudras and the women under that Manu. So this is a painting by my very dear friend called Savi Savarkar. He was depicting the code of Manu and how under the law of Manu, the various punishment has been given to the Shudras and the women. Therefore, Dr. Ambedkar burned those values which were oppressing the human. You see, you have to bangle or make a sound with the bangle stick, and you have to split into the earthen pot because the earth will be impure, and she is a woman, Devdasi, without clothes. That was the condition under the code of the Manu. And the man has to go through a deadly pain, the load at their shoulder. Still people are walking with the load, I'm afraid. I must have to make that comment in today's time. People are carrying with the huge load, which is only a symbolical representation I'm showing here, as I said. but this tries to communicate something beyond the symbols, which teaches us to the reality. And therefore, Buddha took a position that equality must be promoted, that the gender biasness must be killed. The fundamentally that comes down to the hierarchy or patriarchy, if you see what I mean. So why that happened? Because that clubs with the divine sanctity and the sacred authority. Because if you follow that sacredity of the identity clubbed by your sacred text and the divine authority, human has no power to transcend. And therefore, Buddha sort of denied those sacred authorities and the divine authorities, right? And therefore, women and the Shudras could able to rise, as I already said. So you see in the Theri Gathas written by the great nuns, great elderly sisters, great mothers of humankind, who are teaching that you should love humanity like a mother. Actually, the inspiration of Theri Gatha probably comes from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. Buddha says that Mata Yatha Niyam Puttang Ayusa Ek Putta Manu Rakhe Evam Pi Sabba Bhutesu Manasya Parimana. Like mother look after his own only a son. That's how your mind or your heart should look after humanity. That's what these great theories, the great nuns, great elderly sisters are trying to teach the men. And Dr. Ambedkar, in his book 2, part 7, he cites the example of Chandalika, untouchable woman, where Buddha ordained her. Who calls you Chandalika? You are no more Chandalika. And Prakrita was her name. And after receiving the Buddha's teaching, she said this: owing to ignorance I was going in pursuit of Ananda. My mind is now enlightened. I am like a sailor whose ship, after a mishap, has reached the other bank. I am like an unprotected aged person who has found the protection now. Means by the teaching of the Dhamma, she found the protection. I am like the blind who has got a new sight. The blessed Lord, that's the Buddha, by his wise word of advice has awakened me from my sleep. That's what Prakrita proclaimed to the Buddha. Dear brothers and sisters, story does not end here. That is Prakrita's response to the Buddha. But what was Buddha's response to the Prakrita is important. What Buddha says? Buddha says, Chandalika, you are no more Chandaluka now. You will be a model for noble men and noble women. For men and women, for both you will be a model. You were of low caste, but Brahmins will learn a lesson from you. And Buddha says, you were, not you are. That your old identity has been killed. But now you are no more a Chandalika. And Brahmins will learn a lesson from you. Swear not from the path of justice and righteousness, and you will outline the royal glory. Of queens on the thrones. However rich they are, however upper caste they are, however beautiful they are by their varna, but you will be a role model for them. You are no more Chandalika. I think that's the radical beauty Buddha is trying to transcend in the human existence. Undoubtedly, Dr. Ambedkar himself, by the inspiration from that Theri Gathas, cites in Buddha and his Dhamma, and also says that I'm sure that whoever reads the reference to women by the Buddha, which occur in the sacred literature of the Buddhist, will be convinced that far from doing anything which would have the effect of degrading the woman, the Buddha all along tried to enable women and try to elevate her. That's what Dr. Ambedkar said about the great nuns and trying to translate that spirit of the beauty in our own existence, in our own experiences. That's how he opens the new door of liberation. Vimukha Mokha, the door of liberation, the nucleus for new society, Bahujan Hitai, Bahujan Sukhai, which is at the beginning beautiful, middle beautiful, and at its end it is beautiful. That's how Dr. Ambedkar opened up a new window for the beautiful country, for the beautiful world, for the beautiful society, for the beautiful culture, for the beautiful human existence. I will say that as loud as possible. And that's where Dr. Ambedkar's idea, when he was asked during in which yana you are going to enter in, he said that I'm not going to enter into any yana, Hinayana or Mahayana or Vajrayana. I am simply entering into Buddha's yana, Buddhayana, or you may call it a Navayana. That's where Dr. Ambedkar make a depart from the higher hierarchy of the society. He walks away. This is again another painting by my friend Sabi. He drives away from the injustice society, the unjust society, the society based on hierarchy. Some of his painting, sun cannot be a black, but they were not allowed to come into a village. So their worldview, their world was in the dark. Therefore, they have never seen the sun of humanity. Therefore, he named his painting as a black sun, where the humanity was crippled, humanity was condemned. The new window was closed, the new door was closed, what Dr. Ambedkar opened in 1956. That's where I call this a radical beauty. The beauty that transcends your ego, the beauty that transcends yourself. And many artists, many upcoming artists are sort of contributing in that iconographic and the visual imagination of what Dr. Ambedkar was imagining for the culture should be, what symbols should be. This is the Madhubani style painting by my good friend Malvika Raj. She painted in a Madhubani style the entire life of the Babasaheb in Madhubani style, and so many paintings she did life of the Buddha in Madhubani style, and also in performing arts. Dr. Ambedkar's one of the Guru Kabir, who says that the beauty is the beauty of Nirmal Man. Nirmal Mans, no Mala, means Nirmal. Nira, Nirvana. Nira means no, Vana means Krishna. Mala means the impurity, ugliness, kleshas. Nira means no. So Nirmal Man, Kabir calls it. And the Guruji Tapania, who is based in Indore, Lunia Khedi village, he sings the songs of Kabir. So you see that the Navayana art forms, the Navayana values are sort of going to the people to teach the beauty of the humanity. From the Kabir was one of the Guru of Dr. Ambedkar, and he says that Sadib the Kabir Nirmal Man Bhaya Jaisa Shuddha Neer Taba Pachi Lage Hari Phir Kahata Kabir Kavata Kabir. Hari here means, Hari here is the unconditioned mind. When your man is nirmal, when your man is unconditioned, when your mind is unconditioned, then only you see the nirmal mind, the unconditioned mind. That's what Kabir says, Kabir says, Kabir says. That's the beauty in the Kabir's Doha, which in art forms you see in the various communities. There are many communities who are singing the songs of Kabir. I don't have all the sort of time to share that. And these are the dramas on Kabir, which was performed in the theatrical art forms by Sanjay Jivne in Samyak Theatre. So there are upcoming artists. You can also see in the Casteless Collective, set up by Paranjit, how they are bringing the songs of liberty, songs of victory over the prejudices in that sense. But that inspiration did not even cease to mere India, my dear friends. You see, you might have earlier presentation on Hungary from Janusz and Tibor, but I don't want to go into that story. What I wanted to tell you, when I was in Berlin, I visited this monument, where this is a memorial where the Hitler killed many gypsies, and that monument has been built up here. These are all grave style art forms in Berlin, in Germany. And when I visited this site and I was roaming around these spaces, my mind was so heavy. I said, what the hell that humanity has happened to this, where humans are killed. And our country is not an exception to this. But nonetheless, there are hopes, as I say. Nonetheless, there is beauty. And that inspiration also travels to these two beautiful friends, where they set up Ambedkar Vidyalaya, Ambedkar Gymnasium in Shayokaza in Hungary, which I'm engaged with, which I'm sort of deeply engaged with rather, and try to sort of contribute as much as possible. And if you see the school they built up, you see the People's Education Society symbol they have on their school. If you could able to see this slide, that's the symbol of Deer Park on the school. So this iconographic presence with the blue color painted walls is sort of visible in there. So now last part of my presentation, I would like to conclude. If we don't cherish this beauty, we'll end up into the second crisis. We will end up into the dukkhas. And I'm speaking, and I'm very aware I'm speaking in pandemic crisis. I'm speaking in coronavirus. I will be over, coronavirus will be over. But this message or these values must sustain. These values must live. These values must prolong and long live, where the dukkha must not encounter because of the ugly values. The values that has been oppressed by the oppressive culture, either by divinity or sacred text. So I don't know what load humanity is carrying in our own experience in present time. I wanted to contextualize my entire discussion in day-to-day's life. So Kalyana, where Buddha addressed to look after humanity himself, where he addressed and look after the poor and the sick people. We are in tears. We are crying into a humanity is crying today. I'm not exaggerating. These are the very realistic pictures in front of our eyes, whether I'm in the house or I'm outside the house. Those who are in the house, they must be, if they are at all sensitized by these, the values of the beautiful humanity or the Kalyana, the aesthetic that transcends the ego, that transcends the caste, and therefore provokes the end of suffering, they must be in the guilt. And they will feel guilt. And they must do something for it, either by donation or either by talks or inspiring people, their students. I'm a teacher, I will inspire my students or their disciples or their friends or their officers or their political friends or their politicians. There is no sort of now restrictions to sensitize the beauty of humanity and to speak out about it to save the humanity. Of course, with non-violence and of course with the virtuous values of beautiful, as Buddha taught, as Dr. Ambedkar tried to highlight, as Dr. Ambedkar tried to teach us and teach this nation. And therefore, the transcendence comes when you stand outside the maze of the prejudices. This is the maze of prejudices. Traditionally, it is called the Bhava Chakra. But Buddha does not participate in this Bhava Chakra. Buddha does not participate in this chakra of the ugliness. He stands outside it. I would put Dr. Ambedkar's image here, showing the hand towards the beautiful values. That's what Dr. Ambedkar's finger is pointing at. That's what Dr. Ambedkar hinting at. Move towards beauty. Move towards the beauty of humanity. Move towards the Kalyana. Move towards the Kalyana of the liberty, equality and fraternity through constitution, but in traditional way, because Buddha stands outside the circle of the prejudices, he can liberate. That's what we all should try. That's what every politician, every bureaucrat, every officer, every minister, whoever they are, whatever religion, caste, creed, color, gender they belong to, party they belong to, professors, intellectuals, activists, musicians, artists, painters, singers must sing the song of liberty, equity, and fraternity, which is beautiful. And therefore, Buddha is able to transcend all the prejudices from all the colors into a pure white light, luminous, which represent by white generally in the art forms. Buddha transcend all the four birds from any direction they comes into a white at his feet, at his lap. Why he could able to do it? Because his mind is luminous. Because his mind is transcend to the all prejudices. I have no time to read all this. I would like to conclude this, where Hira Bansode says in his beautiful poem that my countrymen, I'm just reading last three lines. To your court, I have brought a complaint. Will you give me a justice? I brought the complaint to the court of humanity. All the court's picture I have shown you. I have brought the complaint to the court of beautiful, or should or ought to represent beautiful. Will you give me a justice? That's what humanity is craving for. And I would like to conclude with my poem, which I wrote in 2009. As I explore or evoke the image of walking Buddha, I cried, I strived, I struggled, I fight. I am untouchable. I was denied. But I met the walking Buddha and I dignified, which Buddha reaches to the heart of every human being and all human beings. That's what I would like to say in this presentation. Thank you very much.
Santosh sir, that was a very amazing presentation. You took us through the historical sketch of Buddhism and how Babasaheb Ambedkar's life journey, his fascination with beauty, and also you have taken us through a very contemporary sort of a movement of art. The question for you is that you yourself is an artist, and you started you play several instruments, and you sing. So the question is, like art is very important for the revolution, any sort of revolution, and the kind of Indian, this thing, revolution and counter revolution, the art, particularly this liberating art, has a role to play in as a counter revolution. I'm not saying counter culture, because that will reduce it down to something vis-a-vis something. But what I'm trying to say is, this, how important is the role of art, the music, the dramas, the paintings, and any other art forms in this, what is called, peaceful social revolution, in this the revolution towards enlightenment. How important is the role?
Right. I would like to just cite one little example. When I was exhibiting the Savi Savarkar's show, which was inaugurated by the Vice President of India, Hamid Ansari, in 2009, probably, I had a show. And there were some foreigners who were walking through his painting galleries. And some pictures I have already shown you. So one woman from, I think, America and England, they both were walking together. I was sub-curator to that show. And while curating that show, that is not the first example. I also curated his show at Diksha Bhumi at Buddha Festival. And there are many foreigner groups have visited Diksha Bhumi to see his painting. And they were literally in tears. Then I realized, I asked them, why are you crying? And they were saying me, we just can't take these images to our mind. We cannot take these images to our mind. How can people can be chopped off their tongue because they utter the word of the Vedas? How can the boiling lead can be poured into their ears because they are untouchables and they heard the word of the Vedas? Or How can a living being can be thrown into a boiling oil if they have arrogant or if they have nothing arrogance and they at the sight of the Brahmin, so they couldn't take it. So we know that story as an Indian, but as a foreigner, what makes them to cry? That's the question lingering in my mind, because any humanity cannot be oppressed to that extent in the name of divinity, as I already said, or in the name of God. And when that is clubbed with the sacredity, therefore their tears came out, because they were not untouchables. They were women, but they were not so-called untouchable women or ex-untouchable women. They were white women. Still they were crying. Why? An African woman. Why they were crying? Because art forms, either drama or song or painting, touches something deeper in human consciousness that invites you to transcend your prejudices if it's really beautiful. And that beautiful can be tragic in a Platonic Aristotelian sense. Tragic, when you see any tragedy on the drama, or when I encounter the tragedies on the street roads, it shakes my human existence. I'm not that scared of corona as I'm scared of that cruelty of humanity. And that's what the real art forms invite me to transcend. I have to die anyway, one day, either by corona or without corona. But these values must not sustain, which are ugly, that oppresses. An art form has that power to communicate beyond time and space, beyond cultures, beyond the boundaries, beyond the race, whether you are Indian or not Indian, whether you are black or white. Or if you as an Indian see the oppression of any community like gypsies, as I shared in my presentation, I will be touched. And any human being will be touched. Not necessarily they will be Dalits. Even Brahmin can be get touched if they are really in advocating the humanity.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next question. Can you give us any examples of beauty in the Buddhist history?
Well, I cited so many examples in my survey of Pali canons, but example of beauty, well, just browse any page of the Dhammapada, where Buddha says that, "O monk, you should live in the world as if the bee lives in this world. The bee takes the juice from the flower without disturbing its beauty. That's how you should live in this world." That's what Buddha addresses to the monk. What does that mean in today's time? If I have to live in this country or in this world, I must not disturb others' beauty. That means others' dignity. Flower has its own dignity, but bee very gently takes what is needed and leaves flower as it is, without disturbing its beauty. And there are so many examples of beauty Buddha would say when he praises nature, when he praises rivers, when he praises the Gandhabas in Mahaparinibbana Sutta when they come to see us. And in fact, when Ajatashatru wanted to win the clan of the Vajjis, he went in the jungle to see the Buddha. And when he was seeing the Buddha, Buddha was in deep meditation. And in that deep meditation, Ajatashatru did not want to disturb the Buddha. So what he did, he asked Gandhabas to play beautiful instruments. So gently, Buddha should notice that someone is came to see him. And while listening to that music, Buddha commented. He says that your strings are nicely tuned. And if your strings are not nicely tuned, it will not produce a nada, a beautiful vibration. If it is loose, it will not produce a beauty. If it is too tight, it will not produce a beauty. Likewise, your human existence also, in terms of your views, must not be too nihilistic in terms of loose, and you must not be fundamentalistic in terms of tight. Otherwise, you cannot produce the beauty in your life. So there are many examples of that kind in Pali Canon, which is beautifully said, proclaimed and said by the Buddha. Udana itself is a beautiful, Therigatha is beautiful. There are so many examples of that kind.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next question. In the sense of contemporary art, what is the idea of beauty concerning expression throughout the language of dissent?
I don't think I got that question, Anuradha, but what I would say, defend, I would say.
Dissent. May I repeat it, sir? May I repeat the question?
I can't see the question.
In the sense of contemporary art,
Yeah.
in the sense of contemporary art,
Yeah.
what is the idea of beauty? What is the idea of beauty concerning expression through the language of dissent? Dissent, D-I-S-S-E-N-T, opposition.
Well, what I can say, if you idea of beauty in the contemporary art, I would like to only make a little comment, because I think question needs a little bit of reframing. Nonetheless, uh, beauty is not an idea. First of all, it's not an abstract idea. If I say the mind is beautiful or Buddha is beautiful, that must be accessible to human mind. That must be reached by the human mind. So beauty in an abstract sense, you cannot, yes, you can have an idea, and that's very helpful. Abstraction helps. I need to know how many kilometers any city is, and I need to count that so that I can estimate my journey, and that is important. But on the journey, while embarking the journey, I must reach to the destination. I cannot leave the destination into an abstract. So if I leave my destination into an abstract, I will encounter the controversy or the paradox. And that's what Buddha or Ambedkar would try to avoid. So Buddha guided the artist or the even contemporary art in his own language, that it must be reachable, it must be experiential. It cannot be too abstract where you are hammering your art with the dry reasoning. That one cannot afford to do that. Actually, in the light of Buddhist aesthetic, especially. Nonetheless, I don't deny the value of reason. Nonetheless, I don't deny the importance of the idea in the beauty.
Santosh sir, that you have your own artistic journey. You started as a performing artist, and as I remember that you had produced during the age of cassettes. You have produced a wonderful cassette where you had organized a lot of artists and brought them together, and your cassette was titled as Bhimarayacha Desha. It was in Marathi, Bhimarayacha Desha. So the question, sir, to you is: can you recite something from your compositions? Like I remember that you had done this beautiful composition, which involves the name of the Buddha, and the audience would like to know this performative side of it. They have already seen the scholarly side of it, and you started as a performing artist at a very young age. So is it possible for you to recite that particular composition of yours?
Difficult, because I'm speaking for a long time.
But you can attempt a few lines, a few words.
Yeah, I can attempt few words. That was the, as you said, I titled it as a Bhimraya, means the Dr. Ambedkar, and Desha as a country. That's the same line of thinking I was trying to pass through this presentation of the beautiful country. And that's the country in the vision, in the dream of Dr. Ambedkar, called the Prabuddha Bharata, the beautiful nation. which we wanted to be. And I wrote that in the Marathi so that Pali was sometimes difficult to access to people. So I had an idea that why not I should write something in Marathi in my own language, which I know very well. So I wrote something like this: He Tathagatha Tujiya Charni Karito Arpana Swar Sumane. He Tathagata, at your feet I am offering the flowers of the notes, the suras. Swara Sumane. He Karuna Sagara Pradnya Prakasha. Oh, the ocean of compassion and the son of the son of wisdom. Karito Arpita
Apulimane.
Yeah, Apulimane. I am offering our minds at your feet.
Very
Kalyan Mitra. That's what I was trying to get at. Oh, great Kalyan Mitra, the great friend. Prajna Prakasha, luminous light of your mind without prejudices. Athanga Maitricha Sukha Sagara. That ocean of the joy, ocean of the Sukha. Athanga Maitricha Sukha Sagara. He Shanti Duta, Shramana Shrestha, Tujanam. Oh, the messenger of peace and the best of the Shramanas. I salute to you, I salute to you, I salute to you.
Very beautiful, sir. That was very beautiful. Anuradha, you have any questions?
Yes, sir. One last question for you, sir. What are the programs, initiatives, and the future of the Ambedkarite Buddhist art?
Yeah, I think very, very good question, Anuradha. Thank you for that question, which I couldn't really speak. The question gave me a chance to explore. I would say, if at all the caravan of Dr. Ambedkar has to move ahead, it has to move ahead on the path of beauty. And beauty is only the way out now, because enough of rationalism, enough of intellectualism, and enough of dry hammering of the reason over the theories. One needs to do that. Again, I'm not denying it. I am an academician, so I have to acknowledge, and my colleagues are greatly contributing it. But why they are doing all the gymnasium or the struggle to write or taking pain to write, to produce the beautiful values through literature, through their books, through their research, or through their art forms, or through their art theories. So that path of beauty, the one of the door of liberation which opened by Dr. Ambedkar, has to be amplified as much as possible. That's where, in my view, the Navayana aesthetics comes in, which I coined it. The aesthetic that engage with the humanity, that engage with the beauty of human relationship, beauty of equality, beauty of dignity, and promoting that to self and promoting that to the others. That's where the future of Ambedkarite movement lies in the beautiful.
Professor, that was a wonderful, wonderful presentation from you, and you have taken us, as I said before, that you have taken us through a very long journey of the history of beauty, particularly from the point of view of Buddhism, and also from Babasaheb Ambedkar's own view. As we know that Babasaheb Ambedkar loved beauty, Devi Dayal has said that Babasaheb Ambedkar had many, many paintings with him. And he wherever he went, he tried to collect the paintings. Sometimes he could not put them on the walls, so he just tagged them to frame them in the future. And we also know that he loved to gift paintings to the people. He brought special painting for Nanak Chandratu where Babasaheb Ambedkar went to Burma. So you have taken us through a very beautiful journey, and also you have brought us to the contemporary Ambedkarite Buddhist art movement, where a lot of artists from north, south, east, west, central, and even outside of the world has been playing a very important, remarkable role. It not only producing beauty, music, because we know that the music has always been one of the vehicles to communicate Babasaheb's vision and ideology. We know that the jalsas, as you might tell the audience that, my more than, my 100 speeches and your one jalsa, has that potential. So, if an intellectual like Babasaheb Ambedkar is saying, comparing his 100 speeches with the music form and its power to transform the humanity, I think that's a beautiful line of thinking that Babasaheb Ambedkar has given to us. And I think, as you said, that we need to go back to the beauty within us, and we have to encourage the beauty in the others, and also create, produce, share, and universalize the human experiences, which are beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So before we end, I would like to request you to offer your final concluding word.
Well, I already said, but what I would say as I would like to quote Vaman Dada Kadak here, where he says that Mangal Din To Jani. This is the auspicious day when Dr. Ambedkar revealed the new door of liberation through Buddhism, to realize the beauty in one's mind, in one's character, the virtuous side of beauty, the moral side of the beauty, and also the beauty of truth, which is not confused, which is clear, and which is free from prejudices, caste prejudices, or the nation prejudices, or the communal prejudices, or religious prejudices. One needs to really transcend that, and for that you need to cultivate a beautiful mind. As I was hinting at, Dr. Ambedkar says that the ultimate goal of the human life is to cultivate the culture of mind. That's the beautiful culture India needs. Yes. That's the beautiful culture Prabuddha Bharata needs, the dream of Dr. Ambedkar's India need. And when I say dream of Dr. Ambedkar, I would like to also say for my non-Buddhist, non-Ambedkarite, non-Dalit friends, that he was not propounding or advocating the notion of beauty for any community or a particular community, but to make the entire country beautiful as whole.
Good.
The entire nation beautiful as whole, where no one suffer. As Raidasa says, Sab rahe prasanna, and sabko mile anna.
Very good.
Everyone should get anna, and everyone should live prasanna. So that's the auspicious day we all should strive for. Mangal Din, as Vaman Dada Kardak said. That jana, that jani, that day we have to strive for. That Premnagar we should seek for of Kabir. That Begampura of Raidasa we seek for. And the Prabuddha Bharata that Dr. Ambedkar was hinted at we seek for. And that Sukhavati, what Buddha was trying to teach us, we should reach for.
Before I hand it over to Anuradha for a final vote of thanks, a very important announcement to make, that tomorrow at 3 o'clock, we have Christopher Jacquelot, who is going to talk about a very interesting and very important topic, which is of today's relevance. The topic is Dalits, reservations and privatization in today's India. And his presentation is scheduled at 3 o'clock tomorrow. Don't miss this opportunity. And we have got very interesting speakers lined up in this lockdown session, and we request you to stay tuned and benefit from these interactions with the great scholars. Today we had wonderful speaker, Dr. Santosh Raut, who has taken us through a very interesting journey. And I stop here and I request Anuradha to offer the final words and the concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Mangesh, for that.
On behalf of Ambedkar Caravan, I would like to thank Dr. Santosh Raut for taking us on this journey of beauty. Right from Babasaheb's thoughts on beauty and its comparison with the concepts of beauty in Western world, you took us towards beauty in Buddhism, beauty in Dhamma, and the various structures which highlight the values of Dhamma. You took us towards how to bring art and beauty in India, the concept of radical beauty, and a look at aesthetics in contemporary times. Thank you very much, sir, for a wonderful lecture. And we look forward to many more such interactions. Thank you.
Wish you all the best. Thank you very much.